I work as an MR for a pharmaceutical company. Being an MR means basically selling the drugs made by the company to hospitals. Well, technically, it's not just about selling, it's more about explaining the drugs, but yeah, you can think of it as a sales job. Folks like me hustle every day to get our company's new drugs into big hospitals. But no matter how small the hospital is, I won't sell the drugs until I've convinced the doctors and built trust. It's a job that deals with people's lives. And I believe the most important thing is the patient's well-being. That's why my sales numbers are modest, and I'm among the slowest to climb the corporate ladder in my cohort. I know my juniors make fun of me behind my back for being inefficient. But I've always prioritized the patients' lives and kept that in mind while working. And then, a chance came my way. A doctor from the private clinic I always visit recommended the new drug I suggested to the large hospital run by his mentor, Dr. Wilson. The joy my boss showed when he found out Dr. Wilson, a heavyweight in the medical community, was the mentor, was beyond words.
Listen up, Mike! You've got to make the most of this opportunity. If we can get them to use it at Wilson General Hospital, it'll be a big selling point for other hospitals too. I'm counting on you.
My boss, who usually just scolds me, patted me on the back with a big smile. Even my junior, Luke, who usually accompanies me on sales calls, looked at me with a hint of respect. Anyway, I'll make sure to explain it thoroughly. I said modestly, but my boss gave me a stern look with widened eyes. Don't just explain, get the contract. Got it? Don't just talk big. I was scolded, so I left the scene. I know this bluntly honest nature of mine isn't doing me any favors. But people can't just easily change their beliefs. When I stepped outside, it was raining. It was pouring pretty hard, so I decided to take a taxi. While Luke and I were waiting in line for a taxi, I glanced back and saw a woman holding her handkerchief to her mouth. At first glance, I could tell she was pregnant. Her hand holding the umbrella was trembling slightly. I got concerned and asked, "Are you feeling okay?" "No, I'm fine," the woman replied in a barely audible voice, looking pale. I wanted to offer her a seat on the bench, but it was wet from the rain, so it was impossible. "Oh, Mike. The taxi's here." As Luke said that, a taxi pulled up right in front of us. Without hesitation, I said to the woman, "Please, go ahead and take it." Luke looked displeased, but I ignored him. I reached out to the woman and tried to help her into the taxi. At that moment, the woman's body swayed. I hurriedly supported her body with both hands.
Are you okay?
I exclaimed involuntarily, and the woman seemed to be losing consciousness as she faintly shook her head. She closed her eyes tightly and seemed to struggle to breathe.
Which hospital do you usually go to for obstetrics? You should go there immediately.
As I spoke, I helped the woman into the taxi. Beneath her labored breathing, she managed to utter the name of the hospital. I told the driver the name of the hospital and urged him to hurry there. "Am I only taking this person? Spare me. What if something happens on the way? You should call an ambulance." I briefly considered calling an ambulance at the driver's timid words, but I decided it was better to get to the hospital as soon as possible and said, "Please." At that moment, the woman grabbed my arm with trembling hands. "I'm okay. I'm sorry for the inconvenience," she said in broken sentences, forcing a smile. Her face was even paler than before. I desperately tried to figure out what to do. I wanted to accompany her, but there was no way I could cancel the meeting. What should I do? What can I do? As I repeated these questions in my mind, I saw tears welling up in the woman's eyes. The moment I saw that, I made up my mind. I'll accompany her. Please hurry, I said as I got into the taxi next to the woman.
Mike! What are you saying? What about the meeting?
Luke hurriedly reached for the closing door. I'll call Dr. Wilson directly. Once I've dropped her off at the hospital, I'll head there immediately. You go ahead and start without me. I forcefully closed the door, leaving Luke shouting something behind as the taxi pulled away. First of all, someone from your family should come. Can you reach your husband? The woman opened her eyes and nodded in pain, then took out her phone from her bag and scrolled through the screen with trembling fingers. Let me talk to him. I took the phone from the woman and put it to my ear. After a few rings, I heard a calm voice of a man on the other end. I explained the situation briefly. Her husband quickly responded, "Understood," and immediately said, "I'm heading to the hospital. Your husband said he'll come right away. Hang in there." As I said this, I took out my own phone and called Wilson General Hospital. I asked the receptionist to connect me to the director, and after a short wait, I heard Dr. Wilson's calm voice. I explained the current situation as succinctly as possible and apologized for being late for the meeting. "I see, understood. I'll pray for that woman's safety." The director hung up. Feeling relieved that there was no trace of anger in his voice, I couldn't help but think he was truly a doctor. I was glad to see that he prioritized people's lives. "I'm sorry for causing you such trouble." The woman tightly held onto my arm. Without hesitation, I grasped her hand back and reassured her repeatedly, "It's okay." When we arrived at the hospital, the woman was placed on a stretcher and taken away. Feeling somewhat relieved, I informed the nurse that her husband would arrive here soon. Suddenly, a man in a suit rushed in. "I'm sorry. I received a call and my wife was brought here." "I take it you're the husband?" "I'm the one who called from the taxi." "You! Thank you so much. How can I ever repay you?" The husband shook my hand, looking deeply moved. He seemed to be in his late 30s. He had an intelligent face with glasses, leaving a strong impression. "No need to thank me. I just did what anyone would. I hope for the safety of your wife and baby." I was about to leave. Then, the husband asked for my name, and I handed him my business card. "I'm sorry, but I have work to attend to. Please excuse me." I hurriedly left the scene and made my way to Wilson General Hospital. But that day, I never made it there. Just as I was about to get into a taxi, Luke called and told me that the director had to leave urgently.
Are you kidding me? The director said he'd wait. I raised my voice.
But Luke, in a grumpy tone, said, "I don't know. Anyway, it's pointless to come here today." Without waiting for my response, he hung up. I couldn't believe it. I called Wilson Hospital, but the receptionist said the director was out, and I hung up the phone weakly. When I returned to the office, what awaited me was a severe scolding from my boss, unlike anything before. I was berated loudly in front of the entire department, and all I could do was hang my head in silence.
That's enough. You're off this job. Prepare for demotion.
With those words spit out, my boss left the room. I returned to my desk, but Luke never made eye contact with me, and no one else spoke to me. Then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I left the room to answer the call, and it was the pregnant woman's husband. "My wife and child are safe. If the treatment had been delayed, it would have been dangerous. I don't know how to thank you. Thank you so much. I'll come to your company tomorrow to thank you properly." "Oh, no need for that. Just knowing they're safe is enough. I'm really glad. Thank you for letting me know." After hanging up, I felt relieved. The suffocating feeling I had just moments ago disappeared, and I felt strangely uplifted. When I got home, I told my wife Mia about what happened today. We've been married for 2 years and still don't have children. As we sat facing each other eating dinner, I apologized to Mia. "If I really get demoted, I'll be a burden to you. I'm sorry." Then, Mia smiled and asked, "Are you regretting it, Mike?" I asked myself. Even if I encountered the same situation again and again, I thought I would make the same decision as today, so I shook my head. "No, I'm not. I think if I had abandoned her there, even if the meeting went well, I wouldn't have been able to be happy." "Then that's good, isn't it? Whether you're transferred or not, the job is the same, right? Just work hard to deliver good medicine to as many patients as possible, whether it's in the snow or on a tropical island. Patients are the same everywhere." Mia's words made me realize how much I really liked her. "I'm proud of you, Mike. So don't apologize." I held back tears and said, "Thank you." The next day, I was summoned by the CEO. I was prepared for some kind of punishment, but I never expected to be summoned directly by the CEO, and I wondered if I was going to be fired. When I knocked on the door of the CEO's office and was told to come in, I opened the door with determination.
Ah!
The moment I entered the room,
I couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Sitting next to the CEO was the pregnant woman's husband. And in front of him was Dr. Wilson. I apologize for the belated introduction. I'm Tim. I'm a doctor in internal medicine. And the director sitting here is my father. The man who stood up said, "Please, have a seat," urging me to sit next to Director Wilson. Yesterday, the woman you helped was Tim's wife. As the CEO spoke, Tim nodded firmly. Thank you very much indeed. I heard that yesterday, you had an important meeting with my father. Despite that, you decided to accompany Nina, a stranger, to the hospital. I can't thank you enough for your decision. I couldn't keep up with the unexpected turn of events. Is that woman's name Nina? I vaguely thought. After I received your call about being late for the meeting, my son told me that his wife was taken to the hospital. It's our first grandchild, so I was completely thrown off. I rushed there as well. When my son showed me your business card, I was surprised, but when I thought about it, what you told me on the phone and what my son told me were the same, so I was a fool not to realize it, Director Wilson said, embarrassed, placing a hand on his forehead. Then, he turned to me and said, "Mike, let me thank you once again. Thanks to you, I didn't lose my grandchild. Thank you very much." "Oh, no, I just did what I had to do." Nervously waving my hand in front of my face, Director Wilson asked me bluntly, "Is prioritizing a stranger over an important business deal what you think you should do, Mike?" The CEO's ear caught my attention, but without hesitation, I replied, "That's right. Business deals can wait, but a person's life can't be regained once lost in a moment. When I was 6, I lost my brother to appendicitis. If we had taken him to the hospital sooner, he wouldn't have died. A sweet judgment of it's okay to wait until tomorrow took my young brother's life. Lives don't wait. Even in this job, I've come to realize that by dealing with many patients. So, I never regret prioritizing Nina at that time." The CEO looked at me with a wry smile as I firmly stated my position. "I will make up for causing trouble to the company. I'm prepared for any punishment." Upon hearing my words, the CEO burst out laughing loudly. "I'm not foolish enough to demote you in this situation. Why do you think the two of you are here together? Of course, it's to hear your talk about the new drug. Could you please explain it again?" At the director's request, I answered enthusiastically, "Of course." Afterward, I took my time explaining the new drug. I didn't hide its benefits or drawbacks, speaking honestly. They listened attentively with serious expressions. That's all. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. The director smiled and shook his head in response to my words. "I think it's an excellent medicine. We'll discuss it with the other doctors when we return to the hospital and get back to you promptly." I was delighted, but before leaving, I felt I needed to say one more thing. "Thank you. But I have one request. Please don't show any special consideration just because I helped Nina. This incident was a fortunate coincidence, but regarding the business deal, there's no need for any special treatment. I want the doctors to consider whether this medicine will benefit as many patients as possible, purely from a medical perspective." I felt the CEO's stern gaze on me for a moment. He probably meant not to say anything unnecessary. But I ignored it. Even without this incident, I believe it's a wonderful new drug that Director Wilson can approve of. Please consider it. The director responded quietly, "Understood. Meeting you today reminded me of the heart to care for patients. I thought Mr. Reps were all just salespeople, but you're one of us, working in healthcare." Tim's words made me feel like my work attitude was being acknowledged, and I almost felt like crying. "You have a wonderful employee. I envy you." The director smiled at the CEO. It was amusing to see the CEO's puzzled smile. Afterward, the new drug was used in Wilson Hospital, and inquiries flooded in from other hospitals upon hearing its reputation. Instead of demotion, I was promoted and am now the leader of the sales department. But my attitude toward my work hasn't changed. To work with unwavering beliefs. Keeping in mind that it's a job that touches someone's life, I continue to visit hospitals, one by one, even today.